New reports now that their show of unity has come to an end. Staffers, former Democratic opponents, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, are just taking aim at each other. Longtime Clinton ally David Brock telling Politico there's concern that he, referring to Sanders, could emerge. They are some very die-in-the-wool Democrats that wouldn't be all that enthusiastic about supporting him in a general election. Bernie Sanders advisor Jeff Weaver firing back, saying, it is not a secret that people who would hang out with David Brock would be putting their class interest ahead of the party and the country. We have got to nominate somebody who is going to energize and excite the grassroots, not a handful of billionaires. So with this infighting, could it be their downfall, or will it actually help them rally back and push back against President Trump? The Trump 2020 Advisory Board member Jenna Ellis, Democratic strategist Robin Byro, and a Washington Examiner's Jason Russell. Jason, let me start with you. I got to tell you, this infighting, over the weekend when Bernie was announcing, I was watching live tweets from some former Clinton staffers, and they just took him to task. They ripped him apart. They timed how long it took him to mention gender and other things. There's no love lost.
Yeah, it was really silly. And this petty politics is really going to help Trump in 2020, right? Like, you know, there's all this acrimony from the Clinton side, and that's going to, if it doesn't, keep Bernie from getting the nomination, it's going to hurt him in the general election. And then if Bernie doesn't get the nomination, then, everyone that is supporting him is just going to say, well, the Democrats rigged this against him again. So what's the point of even voting for the Democratic nominee in 2020 against Trump? So either way, this pettiness is not going to help the Democrats next year. You do wonder who's going to be the bigger person and stand above the fray, if you will. Bernie Sanders was asked about seeking advice from Hillary Clinton, and he gave a response that disappointed a whole lot of people, including Nick Merrill, who's a spokesperson for the Clinton camp. He put out this. He said, I don't know who our nominee is going to be, but I am damn sure that beating Trump and getting America back on the right footing is going to require a unified Democratic Party. So crap like this 613 days before Election Day is irresponsible, counterproductive, and sets us all back. Robin, what do you say for your party?
Honestly, Charles, as I've said for a long time now, that competition brings out the best in us. It's an American ideal. And primaries are always contentious. They're not.
But this isn't competition. Hillary's not in it anymore. This is about the idea. I mean, why is so much chafing, so much anger and animosity? If the ultimate goal is to win, they're not acting like it.
Yeah, you're right, and that should be a concern closer to the general election. Right now, we've got so many candidates, and really, Bernie's got to sell America on his idea. And right now, I think that I'm more concerned that the impetus is for us to try and galvanize around one particular candidate. Yes, he's the front leader, but let us at least get to the debates, for gosh sakes.
But we do have a major divide, Robin, and before I go to Jen, I do want to ask you one more thing, because you do have a major divide. I think it was on display today. AOC once again coming to the aid of one of her fellow freshman Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar, and this idea of anti-Semitism, asking about what about anti-Islamism and those kind of things. There's a serious divide. You've got moderates, you've got sort of left-leaning, and then you got the ultra-left, and it's a cauldron. It's really amazing to watch.
Yes, it is. And look, I experienced this back in the last election, and it was very difficult for me at the time to try and, unify and have our kumbaya moment. But we got there, and exit polling showed that we captured about 81% of people who had voted for Bernie, and it was a net positive because he'd registered so many voters. So I'm hoping that we can do the same.
Jenna, I know President Trump, of course, is sitting back, and the Republicans just loving every minute of it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is something that is, I think, great for President Trump in 2020. There are so many people that voted for him very quietly in 2016 that are more vocal and proud supporters leading into 2020. And if you get outside of New York and D.C. and L.A. and you actually see what is the heartland of America and the people who have just seen what President Trump has accomplished over the last 2 years, this infighting and this just pettiness, as Jason called it, in the Democratic Party is not going to help them whatsoever. I mean, you have candidates like Bernie that are so far into socialism. You have AOC championing that. Then you have Hillary Clinton, who's basically the Mitt Romney of the Democratic Party, that just instead of graciously fading away is trying to push her politics instead of actually supporting someone and supporting her party. So I think the Democrats are just really fractured at this point. That's only going to help Trump in 2020. And over the next year and a half, we're going to see even more promises fulfilled. And I think he's going to win again very strongly.
Also, if Biden steps in, and there's a lot of thinking that he will early April, does that make all of this a moot point? Is he so far ahead in these sort of early polls, and does he have so much stature that maybe he could be the one that unites and leads the Democratic Party?
No, I don't think so. I think, Joe Biden, he's definitely, ahead in the polls. But when you look at his past, there are so many things that Democrats are complaining about, whether it's his views on race. Some of them still bring up his views, or not his views, but his plagiarism from the campaign. And I think it was 1988.
What views on race are those?
Well, there were some comments back in the 1970s that he made that were actually sort of in favor of segregation that the Washington Examiner reported on a month or two ago. So certainly there's that. But, obviously, like everyone else in the Democratic Party, he didn't come around quickly enough on gay marriage. He waited until, until he was vice president, I believe, like the rest of the party. So certainly there are going to be many complaints. But, and there are other flip-flops there, too. But, anyone who's been in politics for more than a decade has flip-flopped on something. Yeah,
but Robin, I think Jason makes an amazing point here. There's already pushback against Joe Biden. He's not what the Democrats are pushing in terms of new leadership, a new vision, this youth movement. I'm not sure it's going to work despite him leading in the polls right now.
And that's a concern. And his age has been brought up numerous times. Generally, he's regarded as sort of the old guard of the Democratic Party. And there is quite a push now to get somebody younger who can really drive up the youth vote and get people galvanized and energized to get out there. And I understand that. That's why I'm just sitting back and listening and giving them all a chance to plead their case and make their argument who they feel is best.
I'm sitting back and I'm popping my popcorn. I'm doing the same thing. It's never a dull moment. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.